I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. So this morning I was getting dressed and I wanted to wear a t-shirt, and I wanted to wear this brand new hole shirt I got, which is actually kind of like an old hole shirt, but a new one, and it doesn't fit. It's too big. The shoulders are too long, the body's too long, the sleeves are too long. I just was not feeling it. So today we are going to tailor up a t-shirt that is too big, and I'm gonna go over all those details so you can make your t-shirts fit perfectly. So the main things I need to do are take in the shoulder lines because they're hanging way down my arm, so we wanna make sure that the sleeve is actually at the tip of the shoulder, and we're gonna slim up the body a little bit as well. You might not know this about me, but when I was a teenager, I loved Courtney Love in Hole. She was so inspirational to me as a young teen. She was a badass lady, and I loved all that she embodied. And music is one of the reasons I got into fashion, so I want this shirt to fit me perfectly. So taking in a t-shirt is super easy, so make sure you follow along to get all those little tips and details throughout the video. So let's put it on the dress form and take a look at it. So I've got my shirt on the dress form, and you can see it is pretty loose on it. I would like a nice fit. So we are going to take in these shoulders here and take in the sides. So the first thing I'm gonna do is mark the shoulders. So you can put this on yourself. You don't have to have a dress form, but it's easier for me to show you on the dress form. So if you put this on, grab your chalk and get in front of the mirror. And what you wanna look for is the tip of your shoulder. And what I want you to do is take the chalk and just mark the tip of your shoulder, so that way we know where we want the sleeve to start. So you can see right now the sleeve is way down here. So we need to take it and pull it way up here. So we're gonna be getting rid of all this extra fabric between the sleeve and the tip of the shoulder. What I also wanna do is chalk a little bit where the armhole is. So you can do this on yourself by just seeing where is like your armpit. Basically, you're just gonna follow that line that goes under you. And we can see that this one is gonna come way over here. You can do it on the back as well. Maybe grab a friend, or we can use a ruler for this when you take off the shirt. So now that we have a new armhole roughly marked, we are going to take in the sides. So a lot of times t-shirts do not have side seams because this is a tube of fabric to make the shirt. They cut out a hole and some shoulders and add that sleeve in there. So you're gonna have to find out where the side seam of your shirt is. Now you can make this as tight or as loose as you want for your new shirt. I'm gonna make mine fairly fitted. So you can see I'm grabbing the fabric, taking the pin, going in and coming back out. And basically what we're gonna do is make a line of pins where we want our new seam to be, and just work your way all the way down. So when we get to the armhole here, this can be a little bit tricky or confusing because the armhole is so low, because the shoulder is dropped so low. So we are actually going to pin up into the sleeve and take off some of the sleeve and raise the armhole at the same time. So you can see that we are going to be pinning up and then over into the armhole. Now, if you didn't need to take in the armhole, you are just gonna blend your pins into the seam of the underarm, but we're taking in our armhole here and our sleeve, our underarm sleeve. So we're gonna pin all the way over. Okay, so once you have that done, your pin should look something like that. So now I'm gonna do basically the same thing on the other side. Now that we have the sides pinned and the shoulders chalked, it's time to try it on and see what it looks like. And if it feels like it's a good fit, then we're gonna go ahead and sew it up. But I've got a lot of little details to make sure that this goes right for you, so make sure you keep on watching. You can see that the pinning on the dress form worked really well. So you can see this fabric that we're going to be taking off and how the shirt is going to fit. So if you like how the shirt fits with the pins, that's how it's gonna fit later. If you don't like the fit, go ahead and adjust it right now with your pins. And my shoulders seem to line up right where they should be, so we're good to go. So let's take it off, go over to the drafting table, and do a bunch of chalking with our rulers. Here we are back at the drafting table. So grab your chalk and we are gonna chalk where all the pins are, so that way we know where to draw our seam allowance and cut off the extra fabric. So I'm gonna start at the bottom of the shirt and I'm gonna mark where all of the pins are. I'm even gonna mark the ones that are in the sleeve as well. So now you can see we have these little chalk marks here. So what we can do is remove the pins. We still have our chalk marks. And now your line might look a little bit wobbly, it might not look even, and that's okay. We are going to take a ruler and we are going to connect all of our dots. So if I connect these, you'll notice that this one is way out here. That's okay. We are just gonna blend from that one to the next one. And then we're gonna turn our ruler and just blend all of these little connect the dots together. Now when you get to the armhole, you could use a French curve here to make sure that you're getting a nice smooth line into your sleeve. Here we go. So now you can see exactly where our new sewing line needs to be, but we need to add seam allowance because where we put the pins was our sewing line. So you can choose your seam allowance. I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch today. So I'm going to line up the 1/2 inch mark on my ruler with that chalk line. And when we do that, we draw on the outside. And then when we lift it up, we are gonna have our cutting line here. So this here is our seam allowance. The area between our sewing line and our cutting line is going to be our seam allowance. And you might be wondering, how am I gonna get this to be even on both sides? Because what if you pinned and you didn't pin perfectly on both sides? And to be honest, that's just impossible to do. Well, stay tuned because I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you subscribe to Sew Anastasia and hit the notification bell so that way you know when all the new sewing videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching Sew Anastasia. Now let's get back to taking in that shirt. Now that we have the side seam all chalked up, let's move on to the shoulder and the armhole, which is the trickiest part. So you can see where I drew my wobbly lines here for the armhole, totally okay. We are gonna go back with the ruler. I'm gonna go back here with the French curve and we are gonna line it up so that way it blends with the lines that are there. And now when we blend this line, we want it to go right back into the underarm seam where we have the chalk of our sewing line. So it's really important that it's blending right back into this spot here. We want everything to be a nice, smooth transition into our new sleeve. Okay, so we've got a line going from the underarm seam all the way up to the shoulder, and now we need to add our seam allowance. So go ahead and add your 1/2 inch, 3/8, whatever you'd like to use, 5/8 even. Okay, now we know exactly where we need to cut. So here's the scary part. We're gonna cut up the t-shirt. So grab your scissors and let's cut on those chalk lines. So I'm gonna start at the top of the shoulder on my cutting line, and when I cut, I'm gonna go all the way through to the bottom of the sleeve. Now don't worry about these other chalk lines we have right now. We're gonna get to that in a minute. So we're gonna go ahead and cut through those all the way. What? Scary? Oh my gosh. We totally detached our sleeve. Totally okay. And now what we're gonna do is cut down the side seam of the shirt. Okay. So now we have a new side seam and a new armhole. But now what do I do with this extra piece on the top of the sleeve? Well, we are just going to cut it off. You got it, you heard it right. Oh, we also have the chalk line down here. So we're gonna take a little bit off of the underarm seam on the sleeve. So we're gonna cut that chunk off. And now you can open up your sleeve and we can cut off that extra piece that was hanging on the shoulder. Okay, so now we have a new sleeve, we have a new armhole, and a new side seam. But now how do we get the exact same shapes on the other side so that way we're symmetrical? Well, we are going to lay them on top and use them as pattern pieces. Believe it or not, these little scraps are going to be our pattern pieces to make sure the other side gets taken in the same amount. So don't throw these away yet. So we can remove the pins on this side. We just had the pins on this side so that way we could get a rough fit for trying it on and making sure that we didn't make the shirt too tight or too loose. And because we're gonna use those little scraps as our pattern piece, we are good to take these pins out. I know it feels a little like, wait, what? We pinned it up. Why don't we need those pins? Trust me, we don't need them right now. Okay, so we have got everything nice and flat. I know I've got some chalk lines up here for my shoulder, but I am actually just gonna pretend those don't exist because we need to chop off this piece of the shirt here. So let's make sure our shirt is folded properly at the shoulder seam here so that way we can see it. Flatten it out really nice. Really important that your shirt is nice and flat when you're doing this. Okay, so there's a little chunk that we cut off the sleeve was this part on the other shirt right up here. So right sides are always together, so the wrong side of the shirt is going to be facing you when you line this up. And now this here is our pattern piece that we are going to follow. So that one goes right there. So we are gonna leave this on here. We can go ahead and pin this. And then remember, our sleeve was right here. This is the sleeve that we had. So what we can do when we cut is cut off the sleeve, and then we're gonna cut this extra chunk off, blending right into that armhole over there. So the first thing I'm gonna do is cut off the sleeve. Okay, now we can set that to the side. And now I'm gonna cut off that little extra chunk on the shoulder so that way the shoulder seams match on both sides. We're gonna follow this piece as a template. Okay, there we go. So now we have the curve on this side and the curve on that side, and they match. You'll notice we have these little extra chunks from the sleeve that are there still. That's great, we want those to also be there. And now what we're gonna do is take this chunk for the side. We're gonna fold it in half. We're gonna place it on the shirt. Make sure you have the fold of it on the fold of your shirt so that way you get the proper curve on the side. We're gonna pin it all the way down. We're folding it in half because we have a front and a back to the shirt. So when we cut this side, we cut the shirt while it was folded in half. And since we're cutting the shirt folded in half on this side, we need to make sure that we're folding our pattern piece that we have here in half. If we left it flat open, we would be cutting off too much shirt. Now that I have this little pattern piece pinned on, we are ready to cut it off. And we are just cutting right next to it. You don't wanna cut far away from it. You don't wanna cut beyond it. Otherwise, your shirt is either gonna get too small or too big. So now we have taken off the same amount on both side seams. Now we have one last little step to do. Remember, we took off that little bit on the underarm seam. So we are going to fold our sleeve, take this little chunk from our underarm seam, pin it on right here. And now we're gonna go ahead and just cut that chunk off on the underarm seam. There we go. So here are all the pieces be cut off the shirt. It might not look like a lot, but it's actually gonna tailor this shirt up a ton because we still have that seam allowance on the shirt that we're taking in. So we still have 2 inches on the side seams and on the arms that we're taking it up and in. So this is not all that's actually being taken in. But now we are ready to sew. So follow along and I'm gonna show you how to get those sleeves back on your shirt and have those beautiful shoulders. So the first thing we're going to do is sew the top of the sleeve on. So I'm gonna go over exactly how to do that. So I have the shirt opened up and I have the sleeves also placed where they're going to go, right side face up. Now what we're going to do is flip the sleeves right sides together and we're gonna start pinning at the tip of the shoulder and work our sleeve around this curve here. So I'm going to fold my sleeve in half to figure out where the tip of my shoulder is. And now I know that that is going to go right at that shoulder seam. And now I can work my way around the sleeve, pinning these together. Okay, now that we have it pinned up, it should look something like that. So we've just pinned the top of the sleeve to the armhole and we're gonna sew a 1/2 inch from end to end. So I'm gonna pin up the other sleeve the exact same way and then we're gonna head over to the sewing machine and sew these up. Before we start sewing, you wanna make sure you select the right stitch. So I'm using this little miniature zigzag, I like to call it the lightning bolt stitch. So this is great for sewing knitwear, so that way when the fabric stretches, it's not going to break your stitch. So if you have the lightning bolt or a miniature zigzag, go ahead and select that. We're gonna start at the back of the seam here. Also, don't forget to back stitch. We don't want that shirt falling apart. And line up the edge of your fabric with your 1/2 inch mark or whatever you chose your seam allowance to be. Take out your pins before you get to them. Back stitch when you get to the end and cut. So I sewed up the second sleeve the same way I did the first one, and it's looking great. Wasn't sewing sleeves back on so easy? I told you it would be. So let's take a detailed look at it. So you can see we have our seam here holding our entire sleeve together. And now if we open it up, we can see our seam on the inside as well. So yours should look something like this. We only have one step left, and that's sewing up the side seam and the underarm seam all at the same time. So I'm going to show you how to fold it and sew it together. So you want to place your shirt right sides together, and the first thing you want to pin is this underarm seam here. So we want this to line up really nice, so that way when we're wearing it, the seams line up, and then we're going to pin to the end of the sleeve. And then we're going to work our way down the side seam all the way to the hem. Just lining up your two edges, putting your pin in and then out. Make sure the head of your pin is towards the outside of your project. Okay, we are looking great. Now we're gonna start at the bottom of our shirt and we're gonna work our way all the way up. And when we get to that armpit, we are just gonna take it and make it straight and keep on sewing. I'm gonna pin up the other side and head over to the sewing machine and sew this t-shirt up. Don't forget to back stitch and work your way all the way down the side seam. Make sure you're taking out those pins before you get to them. So we're approaching that underarm seam here. You can leave your seam open or press it to one side. Okay, when I get directly to that seam, I'm gonna leave my needle in, I'm gonna lift my foot up, and I'm just gonna take my fabric and pull it straight so that it's still following my 1/2 inch line. When you get to the end, back stitch and cut. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side of the shirt and try it on and check it out. We did it! We are done tailoring our t-shirt. We took in the shoulders, we made the body slimmer, we reattached the sleeve. We did so much work on this t-shirt, but it was so quick and easy to do. So for this project, we did a lot of cutting away. We reattached that sleeve here, and then we went ahead and placed right sides together. We sewed up the underarm of the sleeve and then down the side seam of the shirt. It is really that easy. I know we went over a bunch of details, but when you try this, it is gonna go so fast. So I'm also going to hem my shirt and make it shorter. And if you also want to do that, make sure you check out my video on it. There'll be a card here and a link down below in the description. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this a little shorter off camera, and then I'll be back with my new shirt. So here it is. Look at how awesome our t-shirt turned out. I am loving it. I love that the shoulders fit now. They're no longer hanging way down on my arm, so they fit great. The body got taken in a little bit. It's not too tight, but it is tailored up and it fits better. I hemmed it so that way I'm not swimming in it or looking shorter than I already am. Tailoring a t-shirt is so easy. So next time you get a shirt and it's too big, you know how to tailor it. Or maybe you're at a concert and all they have is extra large left in that favorite design that you love. Buy it and tailor it up. So no longer do you need to wear a t-shirt that doesn't fit you right. All you need to do is follow the steps in this video. Check out how big that shirt was before and now check it out. There is such a difference, right? If you enjoyed this video today, give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what you thought about it. And if you try out this video, I would love to see photos of your t-shirts. So make sure you tag me at Sew Anastasia or send me photos or DM me photos or tweet me photos, however you want to get me photos, and I would love to share them with everyone else. It's really important to me that we all stay connected and creative together. So share your creativity with me so I can share it with everyone else. Don't forget to subscribe to Sewing Anastasia and hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. There's always all kinds of fun sewing action happening in the design studio. Speaking of the design studio, you can sign up for a sewing class with me in my design studio at sewinganastasia.com. I also offer virtual sewing classes as well, so make sure you check those out. Also, there's now Sew Anastasia merch, so check out all those little t-shirt icons down below, and you can get yourself a Sew Anastasia t-shirt or mug. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.